Hello, 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 and welcome to XCOM2 War of the Chosen. This time we're going to have a guide of how to do the right loadout. And the way I'd like to do that is really to kind of give you three examples. First of all, explain you how to do a proper loadout and the group composition, and then give you three examples throughout the game how I would go into certain missions. Now, there's always a standard loadout and a kind of, let's say, core scheme that I'd like to apply for my missions so that you are going to be very, very versatile and often can cope with whatever is going to happen in the mission. The better you know what's going to happen in the mission, the better you can be prepared. And later, it boils down to knowing what enemies are there. But let's assume for 1 second we're just in the brink of going into a mission and we know we haven't read it, or we're not at the point of the game where we can actually start knowing what's happening. So let's assume we just started out, and I'm going to show you really how that would look like. So we're having only let's say a couple of squaddies here, only 4 slots out of 6, and we would be on our first mission between squaddies and sergeants, really the beginning of the game. Don't get all anxious about the armor. We're going to effectively modify that for the purpose of this game, of this guide. Now, you're usually not starting with that armor. You're usually going to see this little shit armor, also called Kevlar, as the starting armor, and you're probably not going to see the heavy weapons, but you're going to see the normal weapons. So bear with me in the explanation that all of the guys should look like this and not like this, right? So I assume you have that level of abstraction now. So when you are going to start the XCOM game, you're going to see that in most of the cases, you're pretty limited in the choices that you can run. So I would now assume we're going into a mission, a very starting mission, and the first thing is what kind of constellation between the classes makes sense. I would always try to get one of each class onto a mission. They are very helpful. It is very helpful to leverage synergizing effects between the classes. Now, the standard loadout into a 4-man mission at the beginning would always be Grenadier, Assault, Sniper, and a Specialist. If you begin to have either psionic characters for whatever reason early in the game, or one of the special factions, you're almost at the point where you have this 5th soldier, and that should then be the unique character. Once you have the 5th soldier, you can add up whatever you want. In missions that are not time critical, I usually like to bring a 2nd sniper. If the mission is very hard at the beginning, I usually like to bring a 2nd grenadier, because the grenades just make a lot of the fights easier. In missions where I feel that we will get into a big firefight, maybe underground, I like to bring a 2nd assault, because they can pack quite a punch at the beginning. So that is your standard loadout. If you deviate from this, you should have a good reason to do so. Next up, what are the typical items that we're going to see? We go person by person. If you start with this standard loadout, you are going to see that your grenadier is going to have a heavy weapon. It's going to look like this at the beginning, because he doesn't know what the F he's doing. But you're going to have a grenade launcher and a cannon of some sort, right? Right. Now, if you're going with that weapon, you're still going to have 2 utility slots and a grenade slot. As for the grenades at the beginning, you can only use the normal grenades, and that's okay. You're going to have 2 grenades for the beginning, and before the first armor upgrade, you're not even going to have this additional slot. So you're very often going to start with 2 grenades. Totally fine, absolutely acceptable. Sometimes, and that is a possibility as well, you can use the extra grenade in order to go for maybe something like a flashbang, because the multiplication effect of the grenade launcher is actually also going to be applied to flashbangs. I wouldn't recommend it. I often use double explosive grenades and a normal weapon. Now, how should you generally beef up the weapons that he is going to use? If you have a heavy weapon, and out of all of the things that you can use, let's go to the smaller ones. I would try to go for a scope because it gives that extra 5% aim that the heavies are usually missing. I would try to go for an expanded magazine, and I personally like stock as well because the stock is such a strong item at the beginning, deals 1 extra damage even if you miss. So that's a very, very nice option. Good. This is how I would start to go with him, double grenades. Next up, we would see, let me change this one, we would see one of the assaults, and the assault usually has a shotgun. It doesn't have Arashi because that's the legendary shotgun, and it also doesn't have a fusion axe, but it's probably more going to be look like the weakest sword ever and a shotgun. At the beginning, specifically when you don't have run and gun, I would advise you to not take a shotgun. Many people do not know that, but effectively you're even allowed to also carry assault rifles. While shotguns are nice, they are becoming incredibly better once you do have run and gun, and often times at the beginning your aim will absolutely suck. So don't go with a shotgun, go with a rifle instead. Now, assuming you have a rifle and a sword, what is your extra slot going to look like? And my recommendation here is that the assaults very, very often qualify as excellent carriers of flashbang grenades. Okay, so it's probably going to look a little bit like this: rifle, flashbang grenade. Next up, you're going to look into the sniper. The sniper so far doesn't have any special equipment. He doesn't have a grappling hook so far. So you're just going to go with a standard loadout. And what I like to do with the snipers at the beginning is really to also give them a flashbang grenade, because they can pretty easily use that in order to be useful, even though they have moved. Normally, once they move, they cannot really shoot their main weapon anymore. So it's either that or another grenade. Last but not least, the specialist, who wouldn't look like this, but rather like this here at the beginning. Oh my god, such an 80 punk haircut. So once you are going with a specialist, he would have a standard rifle, just like the one you've seen before. He would have the Gremlin. And actually, as soon as possible with him, I would hit the nano medikit. I know that a lot of people would say, "Oh, you know what, Saiken? Once you do have your drone, you don't need the nano medkit because it also has 1 charge, and the nano medkit just adds a second one." You know, that might be true, but at the beginning, I more often than not have seen that your firepower doesn't really outlast the enemy. You could go with another flashbang grenade or another explosive grenade, but I'm personally going into nano medkit. Good. That would be the standard loadout of how I would go into a normal mission. Now the game progresses and you reach the mid game. You kind of get to the point where you do have like the 6 soldiers and you have a little bit an upgraded arsenal. You have the first weapon upgrade, the laser weapons, and you also got the first armor upgrade, kind of around months 3, 4, 5-ish. And you're pretty proud because you at least run with 5 soldiers. Now, assuming that you do have a special, that you do have one of the special classes, you might want to take either a Reaper, a Skirmisher, or a Templar as the 5th soldier. Like I said, versatility is the key. However, if you do not have that, you can add whatever extra class you want. Let's assume for a second we're having a run in the mid-game where we have discovered already the Reapers. So yes, we're going to take a Reaper. And let's assume further that with our run, we already have 6 players. But we won't take 2 of the special characters, so no Templar or Skirmisher on top of it. They might be busy, so for the Reaper, just assume any special character. And then What I really like to do as an extra oomph is with the 6 characters. I really like to go into that dual grenadier mode because the grenadiers just offer so much flexibility and cover removal that it is fantastic. A typical loadout in the mid game would not shy away from the grenades. I already told you that's his main job. Probably by now, you know that that with heavy ordnance, the grenade slot would be multiplied by 2. So he already has 3 grenades when going into a mission like this. So if you go with 2 grenadiers, it's easy to always exchange the first grenade into something that you really like. In this case, let's assume we already have the frost bomb. And furthermore, let's assume, since we are running in the middle of the game, we maybe even already have extra ammunition. Let's say we don't have Talon rounds yet, because that we weren't lucky enough so far. So we're going with blue screen rounds, because we have already gotten that. Super useful extra tool. So he would basically have an ammunition and 2 different grenades. I would likewise go with 2 different grenades here. It's just he has the wrong armor. Let's take any other grenadier. Oh gosh, did I just pick the same guy twice? There we go. The second grenadier might be similarly staffed. We take a gas bomb or gas grenade because I like that one. We still don't have other ammunition other than blue screen rounds, so probably that will be the loadout for him. As for our Reaper, we're definitely going to go with the blue screen rounds, if possible, just to give her that extra oomph. Now, how do we fill the extra blank spots here with the other groups? First and foremost, we're going to probably have a different armor for our sniper. So instead of the normal armor, what you're going to see is you're either going to have a spider suit, a serpent suit, or a wraith suit. Let's assume for the ease of explanation, you have the first grappling suit, which means he will only have 1 utility item still, and that utility item very clearly is ammunition and nothing but ammunition. So, moreover, if you look at our frontliner, we are going to expand for the frontliner a little bit, and if possible, we're going to take a mimic beacon. We maybe would stick with a flashbang grenade. That's a big maybe. If already possible, we're going to go with Talon rounds. But let's assume for now that we don't have them. We're still sticking with a flashbang grenade. Around the mid of the game, we're going to change to shotguns because we now have run and gun, and we can really utilize the shotgun power a little bit more. Last but not least, our backline, our specialist, will carry, if possible, the second mimic beacon, still stick with the nano kit, and pretty much straightforward look like that. This is kind of a loadout how I would go in the mid game. If you don't have the extra grenades, just substitute them for explosive grenades. If you don't have a second grenadier, really any other class would do. Just copy the builds here. It's important to take as many of the mimic beacons as you possibly can. It's also important to have 1 flashbang grenade here, at least, and 1 person should have the blue screen rounds. Plus, there needs to be 1 person, in this case, both of the grenadiers can do it, that can actually shred armor. If you don't have grenadiers to shred armor, consider using armor penetrating rounds. Now, fast forwarding into the end game, and the end game really doesn't look all too different. This one here continues to stay the way it is. This one here continues to stay the way it is. Maybe a couple of changes that would happen is there is an option for the 2 grenadiers to actually go for Talon rounds, which I do not have available. Make utility items available. Yes, please. So here we go. Tracer rounds. Not Talon rounds. Sorry, tracer rounds, so that they can hit better So both of them in the end game would probably go with full tracer rounds. There you go. So both of them would constantly hit. Maybe we would remove this guy for a psionic character or a skirmisher or another class. That's absolutely possible as well. I would probably, after having enough mimic beacons, change the blue screen rounds of her into yet another mimic beacon, because the mimic beacons are just so strong as an item, and she could use it without even uncovering. So you would go in with between 2 and 3 mimic beacons. You would go in with one person taking care about mechanical units. You could substitute this one here. I did it often for Talon rounds just to get this extra oomph, because I wasn't worried about mind control anymore. This here can break most of the mind control. You can also kill most of the mind affecting effects. Mind control itself cannot be broken with it, but it can remove all of the other mind numbing effects. You can also kill the sectoid or the avatar. So actually you don't need the flashbang all too much in the end game anymore, but you need to hit often. So that's what's happening here. And you need to have the right items at least once blue screen rounds. Shredding still is an important option. You need to remove cover, so that's the reason why you do have grenades with yourself, and you need to back up as many second chances as possible. That's why you do have the mimic beacons. Now, speaking about PCSs, which is and weapon upgrades, that shortly go through them. You basically, with your PCSs, have PCSs that are very strong. That's plus hit, and that's plus movement. You have PCSs that are okay. That's plus hit points and plus dodge. And you have PCSs that are not so good, which is mainly plus willpower. So these are the existing PCSs. Now, given that you want to have the best PCSs, clearly, unless you have a hell lot of PCSs, you always want to give everyone at least one and want to be able to switch them out. There is an option to do that if you have the right upgrade. That being said, assuming that in the end game you have the best PCSs, let me shortly talk through that as well. You want plus hit on the Grenadier class. You want to have a plus move on the Assault class, on the Ranger class. You want either a plus hit if he doesn't have enough yet, or a plus hit point on the Sniper class. The Sniper class has mobility from its grappling hook, and it needs up to 140 aim. Once that is available, he can get away from the PCS and invest into something else, preferably hit points, just to be safer. You want plus hit or plus dodge, plus hit points or plus dodge onto the Assault. You can be as cocky as going into plus hit on him as well if you want a more aggressive specialist. The reason why I like the plus hit points or plus dodge is that this character class effectively needs to heal, and you never want your healer to die first. You want plus movement on the Reaper. You want plus hit on the Skirmisher. You want plus movement on the psionic characters, and you want plus movement on the Templar as well. Also, hit points could work for him. So that's really how you want to build them. As for weapon upgrades, just to finish that real quick as well. If you look into the weapon upgrades, some are mutually exclusive. It's either the scope, which gives plus hit, or the laser sight, which gives plus crit. In all of the weapons except the shotgun, the scope is better. Full stop. You need plus hit in order to hit. The the additional crit chance for the shotguns is worthwhile. If you are running Talon rounds and want to maximize your crit, you are going for the superior the laser sights. Next two are superior autoloader versus the expanded magazine. In my perspective, the expanded magazine is better. It will give you +3 clip size, which is wonderful for all of the weapons. There's really nothing wrong with that. The superior autoloader is okay. It works well with snipers, specifically with serial, so you can continue to fire. It has 3 free reloads and afterwards it's done. So it's basically one big magazine, but once the reloads are done, you effectively find yourself not benefiting from it as well. So I guess the superior magazine is just a better item for a longer mission, and specific abilities like the Reaper ability where you can unload your full magazine, or Guardian ability from the Specialist where you can make theoretically almost unlimited Overwatch shots, just highly benefit from the superior expanded magazine. I would always, if possible, go for a superior scope and a superior expanded magazine. And now it really comes down to taste, which is either the repeater, which allows you a 15, the highest version allows you 15% instant kill chance. I really like that one, versus the stock, which allows you to add damage to the weapon even if you miss. That can kill a lot of guys, specifically in heavy cover. I personally am a big fan of the stock because I think it is very, very versatile and just offers you another tactical depth to it. So I would go with the stock, but the repeater certainly has its advantages, specifically if you fight alien rulers. Last but not least, the superior hair trigger, which is an all-around good item. It allows you a 15% chance to take an extra shot. I was a very, very big fan of the hair triggers. My passion, so to speak, diminished over time, not because hair triggers are inherently bad, but the other things are just sometimes better. In the extremely very, very late game where you do not need superior scopes anymore, I can see where the superior hair trigger kind of gets a place in a weapon again. But the problem with the superior hair trigger is the weapon, after installing an expanded magazine and a scope, is already full almost. So you only have like this one extra slot, and that kind of is between either hair trigger or repeater or the stock. And I feel something that deals damage very, very often and has saved my life countless number of times where I needed to kill something is just very, very good. The hair trigger, I think what I don't like too much is the randomness out of it. Can only give you 1 bonus action per turn, and 15% might sound really great on paper. For me, it did not trigger all too often. Not saying it's bad or anything. I probably in the perfect weapon, I probably, with enough to hit, I probably would go superior magazine, superior expanded magazine, superior scope, and superior hair trigger, because you're never missing. If your soldier is so far in the end game, then it absolutely makes sense to use it. I hope that covered everything. Super long guide this time, but I felt the whole loadout and how to prepare for a mission is a complex topic. Wanted to go through it and really the different stages. If you liked the video and if it was informative, give it a thumbs up and write in the comment section below. Please also share your thoughts about what I just said.